Okay, I want to have a look at the hard-baked data again just to show you the sensitizing rules and how Minitab will do all the calculations for us. As in a previous video, we had the hard-baked data here in the first 6 columns, and we had the first 25 subgroups. So in a previous video, I generated a X-bar and R chart using those 25 data points, and then we added an additional 20 samples. All right, now let's just assume we were going to generate the X-bar and R chart again, and we wanted to look at any of the sensitizing rules for the initial subgroups. So coming into my Stat tab, Control Charts, and I want to use the X-bar and R. All right, I have my data in rows, and rows 2 to 6 include my samples. All right, and there's 25 subgroups in those columns. If I go to X-bar and R options, I want to estimate using R-bar, fine. And if I want Minitab to do the sensitizing rules, then the tab here says tests, and by default the only test it will do is to check to ensure that point plot in or outside the control limit. So that's the only one that's turned on. It'll just tell us if a point plots with more than 3 standard deviations from the center line. If we want to see all of these other ones, we could tick them off individually for the ones we wanted, or if we change the selection here, we could perform all tests. So now Minitab will do all, whatever, what have I got here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different tests. Maybe there's more if I scroll down. Nope. All right, hang on. Perform all tests. All right, if I say OK for those first 25 samples, when my X-bar and R charts are generated, I do not see any issues with my data points. Nobody plots outside, and Minitab is not flagging any points on the inside. And if I move this out of the way, normally if there's problems with the sensitizing rules, it will show you here in your sessions window what those issues are. So I don't have any issues for the first 25. But if I include, as I did in a previous video, I'm going to copy the new data that we might have collected. So we've got 20 additional subgroups. Stick that in here. So now I'm going to generate my X-bar and R chart, but when I do it, I'm going to base the limits and the center line on subgroups 1 to 25 only, and then I'm going to have this new data plotted as well. All right, so if I come back into Edit Last dialog box, yes, I'm going to use the data that's in samples 1 to 5 right now. Go to my options, and if I go to, right here, I want my chart based on the first 25 samples. I do not want to include subgroups 26 to 45, so I'm going to omit those rows. Now, what this means, of course, is Minitab will plot them, but it will not consider them in the calculations for X-bar and R, or for the control charts and for the control limit, and for the center line. And again, if I go to tests, I got them all turned on, say OK. All right, now when I get my data, the limits and the control line were based on the first 25 only, and it tells me down here that subgroups 26 to 45 were not included in the calculations. And when I look at my X-bar chart, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 data points that are flagged here. And the number that's on here indicates the test number that was performed. And if I move this out of the way, Minitab tells me up here that test number 1, and this is the one that we're most interested in, whether any points fall more than 3 standard deviations from the center line. And yes, subgroups 43 and 45 did. If I bring this graph back in here, here's 45 and here's 43. So they failed. These data points are outside the control limit. And then I got a couple of data points here. Which one is this? This is sample 40 and another one right here, sample 44. And they failed tests 5 and 6. And then we see over here what is test 5, we see test 6, and we also failed on test number 8 with the new data. So upshot of this is Minitab will do all these sensitizing rules for you, and if you want specifics on the tests, you can see that in the sessions window, and you basically just get a little synopsis of the tests on the control chart itself.